Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 47th episode of the Online Tennis Podcast. It's myself, Jack, and my co-hosts today are.
I'll go first again. So yeah, this is Vansh. It was really fun doing the Djokovic and Nadal episode for On the Line podcast with Owen and Jack here, and I'm excited to break down analyze the men's semis, which just took place. So yeah, feeling good.
Yeah, good to be back. Unfortunately, these matches were not exactly as good as Djokovic and Nadal, but there were matches. They did happen. So we'll see what happens.
On that note,
They were matches. Owen's correct about that. Yes, they did happen. We're here to break them down. The first of the men's semis, Rafa Nadal's retirement victory over Alexander Zverev and Casper Ruud's victory over Marin Cilic are the two matches we're doing today. We can start with Rafa and Zverev. Owen was there for this match. And yeah, what did you just describe it as there? What was the adjective you used there? Owen, I think...
atrocious, torturous.
Those were implied, yeah. I think you just said the matches existed.
Right.
Why was it so bad, Owen?
Yeah, so, I mean, we all know Zverev he's not a great player to have on tour right now because there are these credible allegations of domestic abuse against him. He whacked an umpire's chair in Acapulco and was not appropriately punished. And so there's this very uncomfortable balance between that and the fact that he's a really good player and is kind of moving up in the rankings and threatening to do well at this tournament. And so him just being on court made it stressful because I didn't want him to win. And then on top of that was the fact that the match was really bad quality. Neither guy could hit through the other one, especially in the second set. It took a really long time. I mean, you see the set score 7-6, 8-10 in the tiebreak, and you think like, wow, what an epic set between two top five players. And the tiebreak had its moments, but for the most part, it was bad. And then the second set was even worse. And then it ended with Zverev injuring himself really badly, which I don't think anyone wanted to see. I felt bad for him as much as I don't like him as a person. And like that was it. And so it was way too long, but it also came to this abrupt ending. And you know, it was like I love being at the tournament. Like watching matches in person is great, but it was not what I would call an enjoyable experience. Yeah,
the conditions were, I think, with the roof closed, particularly humid, weren't they? I just side note though, I did just read an article today on the humidity basically and how it affects the ball. It doesn't necessarily slow down the ball, apparently. I don't know if it definitely was slow, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think what the humidity more does is it messes with the clay. Like with the roof on, the sun isn't able to dry out the clay. The humidity, I think things are wetter, and so it's almost like trying to hit the ball through mud, and the clay drags at the ball more. So even if the ball is unaffected, it's much harder to hit through the court. And I mean, Nadal's forehand, which is one of the most devastating weapons in tennis, was basically ineffective. I mean, his first forehand winner of the match was at 4-6 in the first set tiebreak after like 75 minutes of play. I think he couldn't have had more than 5 altogether. It was tough. They had a 44 shot rally.
On break point.
That ended with Zverev missing a put away, like a shot I could have made. It was really tough. You would not have wanted to play in that.
Yeah. So before we actually get onto the injury, I did think the first set included included tactics, whether they were exciting or not. There was tactics, definitely. Like Zverev was serving pretty well, in fairness to him, for the first set. I thought he was doing a pretty good job of keeping his service games fairly tidy for the first sort of 6 or so games. Rafa started to adjust his return position super far back to get basically all of his serves into play. I was saying this on Twitter. Basically, Zverev still needs to clean up his serve plus one game. Okay, the conditions were a bit slow, but it's a problem that's plagued him for a long time. He got a lot of short balls that he did absolutely nothing with. It's the transition of game as well. So if he does get a short ball, he struggles to follow up into the net because he's not amazing at dealing with low balls, basically. He hit 9 unforced errors on the serve plus one, committed 4 double faults throughout the first set, lost that first set with Rafa playing pretty terribly, to be honest, but by all accounts. He was 6-2 up in the tiebreak. He kind of did let that go as well. There were a few putaways there as well, whether or not that he could have, on set points, I believe. I think there was at least one. Yeah. Okay, Rafa had that stunning forehand pass, but I think that was Zverev set to win.
I agree. I think this set was honestly on his racket, and he was the better player for 90-95% of it. Like you said, he went up and he broke in the first game. He played a bad game at 4-3 to give the break back, and those 4 double faults came at the worst possible times for him. I'd say he did well to save the 3 set points that Rafa had at 5-4, which was crazy that he even had those set points in the first place. So and then I felt like he was able to do more damage from the ground than Nadal was, because he just couldn't find his rhythm at all on his forehand, and with his forehand basically being ineffective, a lot of the balls were sitting up sort of, shoulder height for Zverev, and he was averaging probably 5 to 7 miles per hour more on his forehand and backhand throughout the first set average than Rafa was. But he was struggling to finish points. He was really, really struggling to finish points, and what Nadal would do is he'd use the drop shot, and he'd try to maneuver Zverev around the court because he knew he can't hit through him. Not with his stretchy, lengthy defense and how many balls he was getting back and how well he was serving. So it was a bit more of a struggle for Nadal to hold. But he did find a way out of those service games, and he did win a lot of those cat and mouse exchanges where Zverev is still not very comfortable at making tough volleys or volleys near his shoelaces or any sort of cat and mouse points in particular. He's I guess decent when he has a high put away volley, but he tends to miss a lot of those as well. So and then in the tiebreak, I think at 6-3, before the stunning cross court pass, he went for a serve and volley and missed it. And then after that, he lost the next 3 points, and then Nadal comes up with another fantastic set point. It's crazy. He comes up with again Nadal coming up with some of his best stuff when he needs it most, like the 4-6 point, and then the set point, and then what's funny is I thought in the second set Nadal would actually relax and start to play a lot more freely, and he'd loosen up, and he did go up an early break, but then he just kind of lost it. He was up 40-15. He was going to hold for 2-love, and I thought, okay, this set is going to be quicker. He has all the momentum. Zverev looks a bit deflated after that first set, which was tough for him to lose because he should have won it like many times. And then it just became a slugfest, and neither guy could hold their serve. I think they only held serve 3 times in total in that set. Yeah. And, one of them was like the last point, which I guess, I don't know if you really want to count that, but it would have been 6-all and would have gone to a tiebreak.
Yeah. On those drop shots, Vansh, I think that's a perfect play against Zverev. I think one of the matches that comes to mind that is like an exhibition for not the drop shot, but at least drawing Zverev forward is Tsitsipas v Zverev in Monte Carlo this year in the semifinals.
And the match against Holger Rune in Munich as well.
Yes, yeah.
And the Alcaraz match in Madrid. So all 3 are perfect examples.
Yeah, I mean, if I gave Zverev the benefit of the doubt in the Rune one, he said he was incredibly nervous. Fine, he didn't make any excuses in the Tsitsipas one, and it was a similar scoreline. He was drawn forward a bunch of times from offensive positions, like defensive slices from Tsitsipas, whatever it may be, and he looked uncomfortable every single time. I don't know why he doesn't hit the shot as confidently as other. Maybe it's because of how tall he is. So off a low ball, it's a lot more difficult maybe to get that same control. Others do it quite well, though, to be fair. He just, I don't know, he looks very, very out of sorts there. Yeah, Nadal did a brilliant job of changing up his tactics when he needed to, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was kind of miraculous that Nadal won the first set. I mean, in the tiebreak, he basically survived with hot shots. Like that passing shot at 4-6, it was incredible. But if you watch that, he's on the deuce side, he's pulled miles outside the doubles alley. I don't know how many times players need to watch Nadal hitting a running forehand pass before they know not to approach him to that side, especially when he's running over there.
This is exactly what my parents were saying, and I was kind of like, well, Zverev hits the backhand cross court so well. It's like that's the shot he should have hit, to be fair. And it's like, well, actually, did I justify that? I don't know. I think you've got a very good point.
Thanks. I mean, It's bizarre. I mean, yeah, he hits it from impossible positions. Like, he makes ones even now that you think he's never going to make. But, like, I mean, this was something Federer did constantly in his matches against Nadal, like approach to the forehand, and it does not work. Like, I don't know what more people need to see at this point. And then on the set point as well. I mean, Zverev was on top of the net. Like, this was not your traditional approach shot. I would say this was more of a put away. Hits it straight at him, and of course he's going to get passed from there because that is what Nadal does. And I was really impressed Nadal came up with the shots at the big moments. Also at 6-all in the tiebreak, he hit a forehand winner down the line from the baseline, which was like his first real baseline winner of the entire set, and a huge moment for it. But yeah, I mean, when Nadal didn't consolidate for 2-0 in the second set, the match just became a grind. And I mean, they had a 44-shot rally that had Nadal really like sucking wind on the changeover, even though he won it. And it felt like every point, it was terrible, to be honest, because they were both having an easier time defending than they were attacking. And when that happens, you just get, physically pulverizing point after exhausting point. And it just went on. And it felt like it was going to continue like that unless one of them just completely tapped out. So I feel like had Zverev not gotten injured, either the match would have gone on to some insane length, like, I don't know, 5 hours and 50 minutes, or one of them just would have completely quit and lost a bagel at some point.
Yeah. Again, I wish I had stats on it. I don't have stats on this particular one because it's very, very particular. But I can't imagine, even with Nadal in his heyday against like Djokovic on clay, he's played shots of that, or rallies of that length before. Like, it doesn't tend to happen. I honestly don't think a 44-shot rally is in the CV of Nadal previous to this on clay.
I was just going to say, they were having more rallies, like over 5+ shots, like almost like 10 times more than they were like rallies under 5. And it was mostly Zverev coming on top in those rallies. It was like 41-34, and this was only like halfway through the second set. And on average, they were having like 12, 13 plus rallies. It's crazy. Like, they were like, the match was 3 hours and 10 minutes, and they hadn't even got to a second set tiebreak. And like, the only other match that I can think of like this was like Djokovic and Nadal in Madrid in 2009, which was 4 hours and
4 hours for 3 sets. Yeah,
it was like 9-7 in the third set tiebreak, or 11-9 or something crazy like that. Like,
that's the shot that came to mind when I said 44-shot rally. Like, if there wasn't one in there, I don't think there's a 44-shot rally at any other point in Nadal's career in a clay court.
One that comes to mind is the 2009 Monte Carlo final. Nadal and Djokovic split sets, and then in the third set, the first 3 games took 41 minutes.
Really? Oh my god!
And after that, Djokovic was wasted, and Nadal won the next 4 games. But they had like a 38-shot rally somewhere in there. I think what bugs me about this matchup is like, it's not like Nadal Djokovic where it's quality and the rallies go on because of the amazing like hand skills and angles. Like, this just goes on because Nadal's a great defender, and Zverev, I mean, he defends well, but I don't know if it's because he's skilled. I think it's just because he's lanky and he camps out miles behind the baseline. So it's impossible to hit a winner past him.
That's like Medvedev as well, to be fair.
It is, but I mean, and maybe it's just because I don't like Zverev, but I feel like the way Zverev does it leeches the quality from a match. And Medvedev, somehow it doesn't have the same effect. But I mean, Nadal just could not hit a winner. And Zverev is not the most, he doesn't have the most pop on his ground strokes. And so it was just like, and since it's clay, it's completely against both these players' nature to aim for the line at 100 miles an hour. Like, you just don't do that. And so they would just wait for the other one to crack. But it wasn't like the Australian Open final in 2012. Like, I compared it to that, but that match had 2 amazing sets and one very lopsided set. And this one was not headed in that direction, to say the least.
It's like a very lanky, stretchy, kind of like languid way of defending that, like, just, it's like Monfils, but he doesn't have the length of like, and nor even half the speed, but like,
right.
He camps out so far back behind the baseline that you're like, okay, I think he would be susceptible to a drop shot here or there, but it's like
they didn't really work that well.
They don't work. Like, you have to.
I didn't think Rafa hit it that well.
I didn't think so either. He hit a few really bad ones actually in this match.
Again, no, I think a lot. I was going to say a lot of that also is because the drop shot is so effective when Rafa's got the fear in his opponent of a massive forehand that sets them back a little bit. So if his forehand's a little bit ineffective, they're ready to step into the court to take on the drop shot.
Yeah. And to move into the injury a little bit, I do think the conditions and the way the match played out had an effect on what happened at the end. Like, I think when you're playing exhausting rallies for 3 hours, and these are not your typical exhausting rallies. I felt like these were points that were going on for longer than they should because the conditions were so abnormal. I mean, you're going to get tired. I think your footwork is going to go screwy. Your form is going to go awry. And when you're doing these very particular movements, like sprinting out to one side and sliding, all of that needs to be very technically sound. And so, Zverev doing a hard sprint to his forehand, and then going down like that, I think in retrospect, it's not shocking. Even though in the moment it was a huge surprise. Like, I feel like maybe they could have gotten some players out there before the match started and like have them hit and say like, okay, are these conditions playable? Like, are we going to get a normal match or are we going to get a 6.5 hour match? And then maybe this unfortunate 3 hours and the injury that followed could have been avoided. Because it felt like no one came away with anything from this.
Yeah. To me, it was also telling about like the rules for these Grand Slam events, like when they start the match, and it's raining and they started with the roof closed, like they have to finish it with the roof closed. But in this case, I felt like these were so physical and it was just so abnormally difficult conditions that, if both players wanted it or if there was a way they could bypass that rule somehow, then it would have been so much nicer had they just opened up the roof and we would have had normal playing conditions like we had in the second semi. Especially once the rain stopped, and it just seemed like the better move.
Yeah, and I know they have these rules, but you can do things like you could ask both the players, like, hey, do you want to open the roof? And then, like, maybe you'll only be partially in hell instead of all the way there. Or, like, I don't know, ask them before the match and say, like, hey, these conditions are going to be like mud. Do you want to wait a few hours and then you can play with the roof open? I don't know. I feel like this could have been anticipated and also avoided. I mean, like with Wimbledon 2018 a few years ago, putting that Isner-Anderson semifinal first, I feel like it would not have been hard to look at that and be like, hey, these guys are great at serving and they suck at returning. This is going to be an extended fifth set. Let's start it in the morning. But they did not do that. So I don't know. It seems like a little bit of foresight and trying to look out for the players a little more would be helpful. Yeah. Do you guys want to talk about the second men's semi a little bit?
Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about that. My segue was going to be speaking of terrible smashes after your Kasatkina.
Oh my god! Holy man, Cilic! Like you're a very nice guy, very good player, but holy crap, he must have missed 8 smashes today. It was insane. I mean, I tweeted, Jack, I think you responded to this. I said he was like paying homage to like Djokovic's 2013 semifinal performance, where I think he won like 7 out of the 15 points where he had to hit a smash in that match. It was atrocious. I mean, Cilic missed like 4 smashes in the first set alone. He missed multiple smashes in the same game. And, you can't really avoid having to hit smashes because every player knows how to hit a lob. So you just have to punch your way through it, and he
you're normally not gonna get a smash because opponents tend to avoid lobs because you normally get to hit a smash, but players are happy to run to the back of the court and hit a smash, but most of the time they make them. Cilic had one that was literally like that's the game you're talking about where he had multiple ones. He was literally like beside the net. It was unmissable. Like it was literally unmissable.
He also had this hilarious forehand. I think it was early in the second set where like it was inside the service line. Like cross court was wide open. And not only did he drag it wide, he almost like pulled it outside the alley. It was like he tried to. It's like a short angle, and it was so funny. I laughed out loud when I watched it. I mean, all that aside, I was really impressed with Cilic this tournament. And after the first set of this match, I thought he had it because he was bossing Ruud around, and then Ruud kind of just decided to peak for the next 3 sets. Like he was doing amazing things. He was like cracking his forehand. He was barely missing shots. He served really well. He hit 16 aces, which was more than Cilic. That shocked me. There was a stretch early in the third where he had a break and he was going for a double break, and they were kind of trading winners. Like Ruud would hit a winner at deuce, and then Cilic would hit a winner to save break point. And Ruud was getting like very animated. Like when he didn't get the double break, he would kind of like yell at his box a little bit. And I was like reminded of Djokovic a little bit, when like he's in a purple patch and he hits a shot that doesn't quite have enough depth, and then he like screams at himself, and it's like, what are you doing, man? You're playing so well. But he demanded an even higher level. And seeing that from Ruud, like I didn't know he had that in him. So I saw that and I was like, okay, like Ruud is going to another level here. And that's not to say I think he'll win the final or anything, but when I saw that from him, I was like, he's actually playing to win. And he did, which was cool.
Yeah, it's very, very surprising. It's not the only surprising thing we've heard about Casper Ruud in the past couple of days, is it? I know, yeah. Well, actually, it's just interested to hear you guys' thoughts on it very quickly. Holger Rune basically said in a tweet that in the locker room, Casper Ruud walked up to him and screamed in his face, yes, really loudly after he won.
Wasn't it Ja or something?
Was it? Maybe it was. Yeah, something like that. The whole concept is just had me laughing from the start. And
what kind of drama is this? Like,
I mean, just imagining Ruud doing that is like something out of a parallel universe.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and Ruud has.
I know. That's what
Ruud has debunked this and gave a thorough description of what he was actually doing in the locker room. Like he said, I think like took an ice bath and then ate some pizza, and Holger was off doing his own thing, and then they left. Like, I mean, if this is a lie, which I think it probably is, because Rune he doesn't have great sportsmanship. He's young, he's immature, and Ruud seems to be, by all accounts, very nice and calm and centered. I don't know why Rune would make this up. Like, I don't know how you can possibly disappoint the person you lost to in a major quarterfinal. I mean, this handshake with Ruud was so funny because, Ruud, again, very nice guy. It's like, how do you mess up badly enough that this guy shakes his head at you? Like, come on, man, what are you doing? I don't know. I think Ruud has a lot of growing up to do, like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely does, and he also yelled at his mom like in the middle of the match. It's like, leave.
Right. So, who's also like his agent and who defends him on social media, and
and of course we know all the incidents that happened last year on the Challenger Tour, and he didn't really apologize for it. Kind of a non-apology, and just made the situation even worse than what it already was to begin with. So
yeah, and I mean, and he is also like, we've seen some screenshots where he's like DMing fans and saying like, there's no way I could like give Ruud a handshake because of like he was yelling in my face on the changeover, and then he's also posting stuff that says like good luck to Casper for the rest of the tournament, and it's like, it seems like he's trying to do a bunch of stuff at once and not really committing to any of it, and therefore has shattered what little credibility he had at the beginning of things. I don't know. A very good player, but he's not helping. He's not doing himself any favors.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
And that was a quick sidebar. Sorry, a little bit more on the match again. I can't remember. It was one of you guys that posted this, but you said on Twitter basically that Cilic's peak is far higher than Ruud's.
Yeah, that was me, I think.
Yeah, probably one of the reasons for how the match sort of played out as it did. Because for me, it was kind of... No, actually, there was a point where Ruud definitely started to take control properly. But there was the first set of the match was definitely Cilic. And then the second set was a sort of balance between Cilic kind of losing and gaining control of the match, basically. Until all the momentum sort of fell Ruud's way. I don't know if you feel the same way as that.
I kind of do too. Like the first set was just Cilic, playing like how he did, for the sets against Medvedev or close to that level, and the sets that he won against Rublev, and it was just kind of big first serve, big forehand, rush the Ruud backhand, finish at net, confident, assertive, but also like, not going too close to the lines and very measured. And then after that, Ruud starts getting into it, and I feel like his his footwork is so good that he finds himself forehands very easily, and he's able to run around a lot of balls in his backhand corner. And actually what impressed me most about his game today was actually the way he defended on his backhand side, because he would force Cilic to overplay a lot by just hitting these really low slices, getting the ball back, and making Cilic hit from like awkward low positions. And Cilic was just spraying the ball a lot in the last 3 sets. I felt like, especially the last 2 sets, where he just totally lost control of his range, especially on his forehand. He was hitting wide very often. You never want to miss wide from a neutral position. And then like Owen said, he started missing all those smashes. Like he missed like 3 or 4 in one game, and I was just like, okay, he can't hit an overhead anymore, I guess. and there was no real like explanation for it. Meanwhile, I thought Casper, he played such a high margin, he was using his backhand. He can actually, his backhand is a very like safe shot. His topspin backhand is so safe and so much height over the net, which I think is actually going to get killed by Rafa. But in this match, it kind of worked, because he was able to go down the line. He was able to find himself forehands, and Cilic was all over the place, just missing wide from neutral positions. And I felt like it was kind of the dichotomy of like his 2 careers in a way, of like his just the kind of ups and downs that he can play a set like how he did in the first set, where he's nylon unplayable, and then he can just go into this mode where he's just beating himself.
And we've barely seen it the whole tournament. That's why it was unexpected.
Yeah, and it was unfortunate for him that coincided with Ruud playing at his best. Otherwise, I think we would have had a closer scoreline. I thought Ruud also did a good job of keeping him on the move. Like, I think people talk about Cilic and like his power is like a whole thing, but I think his forehand especially is kind of overlooked. Like in that match against Rublev, people always talk about Rublev's forehand, and there was a moment where Cilic had 30 forehand winners and Rublev had 10. Like, Cilic's forehand is devastating. Like, if you let him stand there and blast it, you're screwed. And Ruud kept him moving, and that way Cilic couldn't really stand there and get the swing he wanted on the ball. And so he still hit some forehand winners, but he wasn't allowed to dictate nearly as comfortably as he wanted. So I thought the last 2.5 sets were really played on Ruud's terms.
Yeah, he was hitting a lot of them on the run, I was going to say.
If you make him hit forehands on the run, or you stretch him out in corners. Especially, how old is he now? Like almost 34. I feel like he was better at that, obviously between 2014 and 2018. And the clay is actually giving him a little bit of extra time, so when he actually has this forehands, he can just hit those devastating blows. And also the serving discrepancy I found Ruud was serving incredibly well in the last 2-3 sets. I want to say that's the best I've seen him serve before.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think he finished the match with 16 aces or 15.
16, yeah. No double faults.
0 double faults, while Cilic had like 10 or 11 or 9. I don't have the stats in front of me, but it was he outserved and out-aced Marin Cilic, which is definitely not easy to do.
Yeah, I mean, he's so much shorter than Cilic, so it surprised me. And, Cilic has a huge serve. I mean, Ruud was able to spot serve incredibly well. Jack and I were talking a little bit about the serve out wide from the deuce side. Which he hit really, really well. I thought Cilic couldn't read that. And it got him a lot of free points. Like when he was consolidating breaks, I thought he was able to serve his way through games really successfully.
Yeah, he sort of worked on that serve a lot over the course of the last year, trying to make improvements to his hard court game, and as a result of that, he's now also improved. It was specifically to excel on hard courts, but it's obviously working on clay courts as well, and it is gaining him 3 points every now and then where he wouldn't have had that even on his little 250 run in the midway through last year. I believe it was only sort of San Diego where that properly came to fruition. So it's a shot that's working really well for him, and it's a shot that I would like to talk about in the context of Nadal. If we could finish up with that, possibly a little preview of that final. Yeah. I believe that a lot of Ruud's strengths do not match up well with Nadal's, because of course they haven't played on the tour before. This will be their first meeting. I think that the stuff that works well for Ruud, or the stuff that works well for Nadal as well, is particularly damaging for him. I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
I do, to a certain extent as well. I mean, they have practiced a lot with each other, because obviously Ruud spends a lot of time at the Rafael Nadal Academy, which is quite well documented. And I think the key for Ruud is going to be to try to get as many balls as he possibly can to the Nadal backhand. Like, it sounds easy to say, but it's really difficult to actually execute this tactic. See Djokovic from 2021 Roland Garros semifinal. But it's just incredibly difficult to do, because he's going to be at a disadvantage like
Mm-hmm.
right from the return. Basically, I feel like because his serve is gonna get neutralized. I mean, these wide serves today were working exceptionally well, but with Nadal's deep return position and the way he's able to get a lot of height and depth on the initial return, he's then gonna want to look and take over on the and make. He's gonna. I can already kind of see it kind of play out in my head. He's gonna stretch Ruud out to the forehand, and then he's gonna have the rest of the court, and Ruud's gonna have to defend and cover all of that ground on his backhand. And his backhand, I mean, he has a topspin backhand that I think, it sounds weird to compare a two-hander and a one-hander, but in a way, I feel like a lot of his weaknesses on the backhand wing and strengths are a bit like Tsitsipas.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was.
Well,
That's
like,
exactly what I was thinking.
like if you can rush his backhand,
Yeah,
you're gonna get an easy ball to attack, and it's gonna be central. It's gonna have a lot of height. It's gonna be safe, but it's gonna be short, and you're gonna have an easy put away shot after that. And it doesn't work very well with like
yeah,
pace, and he's gonna struggle a lot on that wing. And he does have a better slice. I've noticed this week. He's doing a better job counterattacking with it, but that slice is not going to work against Rafa. He's going to eat that slice up for breakfast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in case people don't know this stat, I'm sure it was something like 90% of the time an opponent plays a slice against Nadal, he ends up winning the point. I don't know when, must have been years ago that stat was true. I don't know if it's still true, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Yeah, so much more in that, Vansh. Like, I wouldn't say that Ruud's backhand is as much of a weakness as Tsitsipas, but I could see him playing this match very similarly to Tsitsipas in that he will be looking for, I believe this is how you should play it, I think you should be looking for sort of first strike tennis, try and get Nadal damaged in that juice side by basically hitting your spots perfectly on the wide serve, and look for a forehand as your +1 shot every single time, and see if you can finish the points quickly. It's not what he's comfortable with, though.
That is going to be tough for him. I think Tsitsipas is more comfortable doing that. He has a good transition game, and his forehand is, he can find the angles with it, and then he can.
It's a little better. It's a little better than Ruud's, and his serve is a little better than Ruud's. So all the advantage that Tsitsipas has, he's actually a really good matchup for Nadal. That's the thing. Like he matches up pretty well with him, but because Ruud's serve and his forehand are maybe a little bit weaker, his forehand's it's probably more about his serve for me. He's going to struggle to damage Nadal in any way. I think.
I worry about the return as well. Like, if Nadal serves a good body serve, or he gets him out stretched out wide on the backhand, how is he going to deal with that? In terms of
you have to make Nadal work on serve, which is why Djokovic is so successful against him. It's a big part. So if Ruud isn't returning really well, it's going to be painful. I think something you have to do as a heavy underdog in any match, but especially in a major final, is you need to be really, really committed to a tactical game plan. And I think this goes for Gauff too. Like in the case of Gauff, I think if I were her, I would try to engage Swiatek in cross-court backhand rallies on every point. And if Swiatek hits good backhands, too good. But you want to make them do something they're not comfortable doing. And so if I'm Ruud, I want to play first strike tennis, like you said, Jack. But I think also if there's a baseline rally, hit the forehands to Nadal's backhand on every shot, again and again and again. And if Nadal hits good backhands, too good. But you're that way you're going to make him work a little bit, and maybe you break that backhand down a little bit, and then maybe you get into the match. If you just go out there and try to do your thing and try to play your game, you're going to get torn to pieces before you have time to blink. So
I can see him getting burned the same way that Djokovic did, but more so in that Ruud doesn't have as good a backhand down the line as Djokovic, and basically will be forced to hit into the space, straight into the lines, jaws, basically. I don't see. I can't see a way of Ruud consistently breaking that pattern of play, because Nadal is able to get down the line, as you said, the other day against Djokovic, with slow backhands down the line.
Yeah.
But if you can't hit down the line as the opponent confidently, then you're just going straight back into Nadal's forehand, and that's when you get burnt.
But he's got to try, right? If Nadal hits it slow way down the line, hit it back down the line slower, or just put plenty of margin on that shot, just get it to his backhand, because.
And I was going to say, then you get burned by Nadal's backhand, which is also a stunning shot. That's the thing, if you go slow into his backhand.
And it can burn you, but it's still preferable to getting burned by his forehands. At the end of the day, you can't let Nadal beat you by doing what he wants, because that's how he's compiled his 110 in 3 record here now, 111, something like that. Like sure, go down, fine, but like make him beat you with his backhand because that's a better way.
And then of course on the return, it's got to be susceptible of that wide serve on the ad side. Try and get a foot in the alley if you possibly can. I know you're opening yourself up to then being aced down the tee, but at least you're.
But again, like make him hit that serve like over and over and over.
Nadal doesn't hit that serve perfectly. Like he improved it over the course of his time with Moya, but he does have a tendency to go more into the body than actually hit that spot on the tee. So make him hit that.
Like he more hits that to get himself an ace when he needs it than as like a reliable serve. So like take that away or like make him hit it more than he's accustomed to. Just anything you can do to throw them off.
In his service games, he's going to want to serve and volley a few times just as a change up to the Ruud backhand on the ad side. But if Ruud can throw in a surprise one every now and then and just go wide on the deuce and then just hit that angle, it's not something he's comfortable doing. But
I just think my problem is most roads lead to longer rallies, and longer rallies probably mean Nadal's going to win.
Yeah, and so his forehand needs to be absolutely just precise, accurate, big. I mean, he hits that on average 80, 85 miles per hour, but against Rafa and his weight of shot, it's going to be like forehand for forehand. It's going to be...
Yeah, I mean, I think his forehand speed will probably be down from normal because he won't be able to hit that many comfortable ones because Nadal's going to torture his backhand and make him hit lots of forehands on the run. Yeah, it's the more we talk about it, I think the less attractive a match of it.
I guess you have to hope it's a bit, like heavier conditions and slower, but then, that might mitigate some of these disadvantages, but not enough to really make the match as competitive as we want it to be.
Yeah. One thing I will say, and is in case somebody tries to make this argument, is that Ruud has the best second serve percentage won this tournament, like better than Nadal.
Wow.
However, that again that gets neutralized by the fact that Ruud has been comfortable extending the rallies against his previous opponents and won't be comfortable. So people can't attack his second serve, but that doesn't really matter. It's because of the kick on it, basically. But Nadal, if he gets the serve back into play, it just, again, all roads lead to longer rallies. So it's not an advantage that actually benefits him.
That's... Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time... I'm trying to remember what match this was, actually. I felt like with Djokovic and Schwartzman, like, a lot of the time Schwartzman would get in a very decent return and get to a neutral rally, which is usually what you want, but against Djokovic, it was not. So he would still lose after hitting all these good returns. It's like, I felt so bad for him. So, yeah, I mean, what should, on return, should Ruud just try to get it to Nadal's backhand? Like, that should be the goal.
It's going to be tougher on the deuce side because, I mean, unless you have that inside-out backhand return that Novak has, which can put Nadal in backhand jail right away, it's going to be really hard. And then on the ad side, I don't think he's comfortable hitting that backhand down the line. On the return.
Exactly. So he's screwed on both sides.
So basically just has to get in a good deep return. I mean, at least if it's in the middle of the court. You have to hope that Nadal isn't ultra-aggressive right away on the first shot. And that maybe he's not quite feeling his forehand rhythm at the beginning of the match, and then he can kind of settle in. But it's kind of a lose-lose.
I think like attacking Nadal's second serve like for cheap quick points isn't really
it's not really a great strategy. I mean, he wins like 56% of his second serve return points on average, and it's probably even more. I mean, against Novak he won 60%, and Djokovic is like, the best returner in the world.
That's a damning stat. Like for Djokovic and everyone else. Like I mean, and that's the thing. It's like his serve. It's not great, but it's really hard to attack. Like because
it's so heavy.
Because of all the spin on it, and unless you're Djokovic, it's so hard to get to his backhand. And if Djokovic couldn't manage it for more than a set, really, I don't know what Ruud is going to do. Like, how do we feel about his endurance? Like, if the match goes along somehow, like 4 or 5 hours, how do we think he holds up?
I think physically, I don't doubt that he'll hold up. I think he's shown he's very, very strong. I mean, he's lost a lot of sets this tournament. He almost went 5 against Tsonga. That was Tsonga served for the fourth set there, and then he got out of that in the tie break. And then 5 sets against Sonego. That was a really big win for him because he'd lost his
it came from 2 sets to 1 down.
He'd lost a team in Federer in 2019, team in 2020, and then Fokina last year. So that was a big monkey off his back to get to the fourth round finally of Roland Garros, and then 4 sets against Hurkacz, 4 sets against Rune, 4 sets today. So he's really taken advantage of this position. I think he's really built up his form over time. Like he also played in Geneva last week, and he was down, I think, 5-3 in the third set against Sousa in the final.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's another French Open finalist who played the week before a major, and they've gone to the final weekend. So maybe this is actually not that bad after all.
Right. And I think a lot of people are saying that he had a weak draw, which he kind of did. But I think he also
kind of did. But I think it's underrated skill to beat the players you're supposed to beat, and also he beat. I mean, okay, he didn't play Tsitsipas, but he beat the guy who beat him, and then he beat.
Exactly.
Medvedev, he beat the guy who beat Medvedev and Rublev, and
and he also won a bunch of different kinds of matches. Like he won a 4-setter from a set down. He won 4-setters after being in the lead. He won a 5-setter after being behind. Like I think he's it's been a tough path, like competitiveness speaking. But I think he's navigated it very well. I mean, and I think as for Nadal, I think this has been one of his tougher paths to a French Open. I mean,
100%,
number 9, Felix in the 4th round.
If he wins this, he would have gone through 4 top 10 players, which has only ever happened twice in the Open era. Once was Federer in 2017 Australian Open, where he beat 4 top 10 players in a row, and the other was Mats Wilander as an 18-year-old or almost 18-year-old in the 1982 French Open. So
I think I can remember Federer's actually. I think it was Federer, Berdych, Nishikori, Stan, and Nadal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's quite a run. But I think I mean, and I think for all the weak draw people, for Nadal, this was confirmed as not one of those the second he beat Djokovic. But and I know Zverev didn't finish the match, but having 3 other top 10 scalps on top of that is not too bad, as Djokovic would say. And I mean, this is pretty unrelated, but a few times in this Ruud, I'm losing my mind, this Ruud Cilic match, and also with Gauff's semifinal against Trevisan yesterday, there was a lot of dispute over line calls. Like a lot of the time the umpire comes over, and the first time the umpire and the player disagree, that trust is destroyed. So you're going to get controversy every single time the umpire comes down to check. And it's so comical, like one person pointing and then the other person pointing and be like, no, it's a different mark. Or like, no, that mark's on the line. What are you doing? And they're like pointing and they're going like this. It's like, how is this happening in 2022? It's comical. Like, I know Hawkeye doesn't work, but surely you can come up with something so that someone isn't running down from the chair to point at a mark that they think is the mark, but they're maybe not sure it's the mark. Like, what are we doing here?
And then what's more absurd is that then you have the broadcasters showing the...
I know.
That
needs to stop.
Why doesn't the umpire have like a replay of it? Like
that needs to stop. It does need to stop, because people see that and then they're like, "Oh, that was in," or "That was right." It's like the umpire was totally wrong.
It just misleads the viewer. Like it's
and even when they give the disclaimer about Hawkeye, they're like, "So this ball is in by 1 millimeter." And the margin for error for Hawkeye is like 1 millimeter. And it's like, why the hell are you showing me this? Like, what is this doing? I don't know. I mean, tennis is a great sport, but the way it's run and organized, it's like a kid's art project way too often.
It's pretty farcical.
And I mean, and during Ruud and Cilic, so first of all, I want to say great cause. Like, hats off to this protester for looking out for climate change. Running onto the court, maybe not the best way to express it, but she's able to run onto the court, kind of cuff herself to the net with something around her neck, and then also glued her arm to the net post, and no one was able to stop her.
The security guards literally just looked at her like...
This is a tournament where we've had issues with that in the 2009 final with Federer and Soderling, 2013 final with Rafa and Ferrer. This is a sport where someone ran onto the court and stabbed Monica Seles. Like, you gotta be ready for this stuff. Like, if you're not learning, then oh my god, like, it's insane. I think so many things need a full overhaul at this point.
Amelie Mauresmo was at the side, worried for her position, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, like, what is she doing, saying like, the men's matches are more entertaining? Like,
I know, that's a terrible thing to say.
And she's talking about the era of women's tennis now, and I'm like, you're gonna use the era argument. on top of that, to
Right.
justify the scheduling and like 9 out of 10 matches,
Right.
starting, and you're starting it at 9 p.m. and then you have people like you have the match finishing at like 1:30 in the morning, and then people like waiting an hour more to get like back home and taxis.
Yeah.
And it's like, why can't we just do it properly and schedule, a women's match and a men's match and start
Yeah.
earlier, like 7?
Right. And whatever your thoughts are on what matches are more entertaining, as the tournament director, it is your job to market both sides equally.
Yeah.
And if you think women's tennis is not getting as much attention as it should, it's your job to give it a stage. Like, as the
You have to
tournament
promote the game.
director,
So
yeah, like, what are you doing? And I know she sort of walked back those comments, and
yeah,
like, I'm sure she admitted it was a mistake, but that was a pretty bad mistake. And like you said, Vanch, the night sessions have been a disaster. I mean, when we did this Nadal Djokovic podcast, I wrote about the match, and I didn't get to bed until 6 a.m. And I'm not. That was self-inflicted. I'm not working. That was just a fan writing an article. But I mean, for the people who were there, like the Rafa wouldn't have gotten in bed until like 4. The journalists wouldn't have gotten in bed until really late because they had to write.
Yeah.
The fans couldn't get taxis. They couldn't find places to get food. Like, again, no one is benefiting from this.
Yeah.
And yet, like, the night sessions are really heavily marketed. So axe the night sessions, please. They're not good.
Yeah, and then and then just on the point of the women's matches, there were so many marquee matches. Like every day there was at least one match you could have put on. Like Fernandez and Nisamova, for example, or like
Yeah.
Osaka and
Swiatek against anyone.
Swiatek at least deserved one match at night. I mean, people are going to say, oh yeah, well, her matches are over in under an hour, and we want to guarantee a longer match. And
like how many times did Federer get put on the main court every time in his heyday when he was
why was
destroying
Nishioka
everyone?
and Djokovic on center court? Like, you knew that was not going to be a competitive match.
Yeah.
And that was like doesn't really justify it. So
I was going to say that's a very good point from one. Like, Swiatek could easily be at the start of a Federer-esque era,
right?
Yeah,
and she's getting very little attention in general. That's another issue, obviously. Like, marketability of Iga Swiatek for some reason. Nobody's buying into it. I don't really get it.
More people know who Coco Gauff is, so that's why in some ways I'm kind of happy about this final, because I'm like, this is going to put a lot of attention on Iga and her streak, especially if she does win, because Gauff has been a story for 3 years now, and especially a lot of the US audience and a lot of the general sports audience. Like, I mean, when Coco Gauff wins, it generally makes mainstream news in a way that I don't see Swiatek's doing, which is crazy because she's on a 34 match winning streak.
Right.
She's dominating the tour.
But yeah, Gauff has a lot of star power. I mean, Michelle Obama wished her good luck on Twitter. Like, that's massive.
Right.
And she deserves that. But so does Swiatek.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think something that is hurting Swiatek that Federer didn't have is a foil and a rival. I mean, even early in his peak, Federer had Nadal challenging him on clay, and so if you weren't drawn to the dominance, you had the rivalry angle to look at. And no one is at Swiatek's level on any surface right now. I mean, grass, we'll see, but such a small slice of the season. And I think something else is a lot of tennis fans are trying to have it both ways. Like, when the WTA is unpredictable, they're like, oh, we need consistency. And then now that they have it, they're like, oh, we want chaos. Like this, like no, that does not work. Like, pick one, because there have been both. And yeah, it's frustrating. I think Swiatek, and I'm really glad that this doesn't seem to bother her, because like, she's happy and talking about what books she likes and that sort of thing. And it's great. And she seems content. But it seems like she's simultaneously being put under a lot of pressure and not getting enough praise. And that really sucks, because she's won 34 matches in a row. She's the most informed player on both tours. Like, even now that Nadal is into the final, I think it's more of a certainty that she'll win than it is that Nadal will win. And that has been even more the case at the start of the tournament. And so, yeah, it's like, I feel for her, even though this doesn't really seem to be getting in her head, which I'm very glad about. So, yeah, I think in terms of coverage, like, people can do a better job of maybe highlighting the details of her streak and what it is about her game that makes her hard to beat. But I think a lot of people, honestly, are waiting for her to lose and then will cover that, which is a shame. And I wish that winning streaks weren't easier to appreciate after they're over, because we're living through something pretty special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the record, I'm all for Iga's winning streak, and I'm absolutely enjoying every moment of it. I think I'm definitely living it as an historic occasion. Like every single win she gets is like closer to breaking records. Like it's insane. I think it should be so appreciated, but you're so right. It's just so underappreciated.
And I would also want to highlight just how hard it actually is what she's doing. Like, she makes it look easy, and she goes and wins these matches 2-1, but these matches also have complicated games in them. Like, she gets her serve broken, she's having to fight a lot in the beginning. Her opponents have nothing to lose. Qingwen Zhang, came out and had a great game plan, and yes, Iga probably, made a few more uncharacteristic errors than she normally would, but she's getting challenged. Like, it's not, she's not like, just has so much margin that she's not really going to lose any of these matches. But she's like, we shouldn't underestimate how difficult it actually is for her to keep this going, like, for as long as she has, and like how much more potential there is to keep on building. Like, she's at 34 wins in a row right now, and if she wins this, then you have the grass season. And I honestly wish she would have great success all throughout the year, because I think for whatever reason it is, but like Wimbledon and US Open, the players who win those tournaments, they generally tend to get a little bit more of the buzz, like especially from the English press and the US press and just more Anglo-Saxon media in general. I feel like they'll appreciate,
the home tournaments, I think.
Especially since those have always had a major place in history, particularly Wimbledon. Like, in its aura.
I mean, and this has always bothered me, because all 4 majors are worth exactly the same number of points. Like, historically, there is no difference what you win. I remember someone on Twitter said a while ago, like, if you have an issue with Nadal's 13 French Opens, imagine them as 13 Wimbledons, because it's the exact same thing. And people don't really do that, and they value certain tournaments more.
Certainly the history of the Australian Open, for example, has always been undervalued compared to the other slams.
And this is not really talked about, but I think the Australian Open is the hardest one to win right now, because it's hard court, which I think the majority of the tour is most comfortable on, and it's at the start of the year when everyone is fresh and not injured, so you have the strongest fields. But I think if you asked most players on tour, and also most pundits and casual fans, which major is the most impressive to win, they would say Wimbledon, which doesn't make much sense at this point. But in terms of Iga on grass, I honestly, it's hard to project her streak ending anytime soon if she even maintains like a B or C level. I mean, last year at Wimbledon, she made the 4th round and she lost to Jabeur after winning the first set. And Jabeur really peaked for those last 2 sets.
She was amazing, to be fair.
But I think Swiatek has improved immeasurably since then. Like, I think if they were to have a rematch, I would favor Swiatek. Like, I don't think anyone on tour is great enough on grass that they would be the favorite in that matchup. I think she's comfortable enough on it. Like, I think if she keeps doing what she's doing, like, this is going to keep going for a while. Like, I could see her getting to 50, something like that. It's kind of insane what's going on.
Yeah, I to be fair, I would have to have a proper think about it, but there are still weaknesses, and Swiatek talks about it all the time. She acknowledges the fact that there's stuff she can still improve on, which obviously is a very healthy mindset for the world number one. But there's definitely stuff that could still be exploited on grass. But as you say, I mean, she could win Wimbledon on confidence alone, quite frankly, like just the way she's swinging at the ball. I'll bring us a little bit back on track, and while we're here, we could talk about a Swiatek Gauff preview, prediction, whatever. Who do we think's gonna? Well, we kind of know. Obviously, we're all gonna think Swiatek's gonna win it. Yeah. But I'll put my thoughts into the ring first. Actually, so you talked about Zhang, like Qingwen Zhang, and her amazing first set against Swiatek. Saved 5 set points or whatever it was. Played phenomenally throughout the whole of that set, and unfortunately sort of fell away after, I believe, menstrual pain. She said afterwards she was suffering that in the next 2 sets.
Good on her for mentioning that, by the way.
That generated a lot of conversation about it. Which is awesome.
Yeah. there was a match earlier in the season that Swiatek had against Samsonova, the only other match on clay that she's dropped a set in. Samsonova served amazingly throughout that match. Second serve, full of kick, loaded with spin basically, super fast. First set serve, amazing out wide. She could flatten it down the tee if she needed to, but particularly that slice serve out wide. Zheng served very well. She has got an amazing first serve. She was able to hit that serve down the tee incredibly well. She didn't serve quite as well as Samsonova, but she still showed that if you serve well enough, or you have a big enough first serve, and you have at least one ground stroke to boot her flat forehand, you can trouble Swiatek if you're peaking.
Cool.
And Zheng did that for a set. Does Gauff have any of those strengths? The serve is big.
Yeah.
It can be big, but realistically, I don't think it can be as consistently big enough, like over the course of the match, to beat Swiatek, is my gut feeling.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I watched both of the semifinals in person, and the thing that stuck out to me the most is that Gauff is a great player. Like, she really good serve, is very dynamic, athletic, defends well. She has good touch. I think her backhand is a phenomenal shot, but she does not strike the ball in the same way as Swiatek. Like, it's a different class of ball striking. And I think Zheng was sort of on the same level. Like, she was able to sort of match Swiatek's weight of shot, which I don't think Gauff can do. And I think if you can't do that, you're kind of screwed. You have to do everything perfectly. Like, just imagining the forehand to forehand exchanges, I think Swiatek is going to mop up. And yeah, I think Gauff is just going to have to execute everything at a very high level. She's got very little room for error. And on top of that, Swiatek has more experience. She's been in a major final before at this tournament, whereas this is Gauff's first one. So I think pretty much all the odds are stacked against her. Like, I don't know if I can think of one thing, maybe the serve, that she's as good at Swiatek as.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just going to be very tough. I think she can win. Like, she's a big match player. I think she can make it competitive. But if I had to guess, I'd see something like 6-3, 6-3.
I just think you have to have an exceptional first serve to beat Swiatek at the moment, just given the performances from Samsonova and Zheng. And I don't think Gauff can do it personally.
I don't think so either. I think her biggest strengths are her movement. She covers the court like extremely well, like, a top 5 mover on the WTA. And then obviously her backhand is a big strength, the way she can lean into it, and she's got, that's really the side that's her best ground stroke. The forehand, still a bit of a weakness for her, and I'm kind of worried that in baseline rallies, Swiatek will really rush that wing and will just get a lot of easy short balls that she can attack with, because she'll rush the Gauff swing, which is a bit long, and it's not very susceptible to pace absorption right now. Mm-hmm. It's not great at absorbing a lot of pace really quickly. And then also her second serve, I feel like it's going to be a nightmare for her to hold it unless she has a really high first serve percentage. Because at the moment, like, Swiatek is breaking more than 50% of the time, which is crazy. She's actually using her serve a bit more, but what's even harder is holding serve right now against her.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. And I think actually Kasatkina was the best example of this. Basically, somebody who's got a really, really good game from the baseline, but doesn't have anything to say on the serve, basically. Must have got broken. I didn't actually see how many times she got broken, but obviously 2 and 1, she got broken plenty of times.
It was a lot. I mean, and I felt like even from the baseline, there was nothing she could do to hurt Swiatek. There was one point where Kasatkina was trailing in forehand winners like 9-4, but she also had 7 unforced errors on the forehand to Swiatek's 1. So Swiatek is in these matchups where she both has more power and more consistency.
Such high margin controlled aggression.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the fact that Gauff is not at that level yet, it's not a knock on her. I think Swiatek is at a level where, like, it takes years, like, to get to this point, like years of facing the best competition in the world. And Gauff has been around for a little bit, but she hasn't kind of experienced the rigor of going to the late rounds of majors consistently, I think, which Swiatek has done for the last year and a half, 2 years. So I think Gauff can get to that level eventually, but I feel like she's not there yet, and it's going to take some time. So I think a lot of things will have to go right for her and wrong for Swiatek for it to go her way.
And it just seems like there's nothing going wrong for Swiatek. So
realistically,
I actually think, I'm not going to say she's not got a chance, but I'd say Gauff has less. Did we say that at the start? We did. Actually, yes. I'll just reinforce what you said, Owen. Gauff has less of a chance against Swiatek than Ruud does against Nadal.
Definitely. Yeah, best of three changes things a little bit, but yeah, I think in terms of level, I think it's a wider disparity right now. So I think she's a great competitor. So she's gonna be engaged from first ball to last. She'll take advantage of any dips Swiatek has, but yeah, I think if she can get one close set, like that'll be an accomplishment for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
I remember they played last year in Rome, and it was 7-6, 6-2 for Swiatek.
Yeah,
and I mean that was a tournament she obviously won. She beat Pliskova in the final, and
twice.
Yeah, and so she was able to keep that set close and competitive, and maybe if Swiatek has some early nerves, which she usually doesn't tend to do, honestly, in finals. She's usually just quits fast.
Yeah, I know. Because I was gonna say actually, Vansh, she has actually looked a little nervy at points during the tournament. That's the thing. So she could turn up nervy, but the fact that her final record is basically immaculate, bar 1v
Hertzog, right? And
that's it.
Yeah.
2019.
By that final, obviously, having dropped like 20 games in 8 finals or whatever it is since then, you can't think she is going to turn up nervy at all. Definitely.
Yeah. And her nerves are also trending in the right direction. Like she against Kasatkina, she had one bad service game at 2-0 in the first set, serving into the sun, played a bad game and got broken. And besides that, the overall point breakdown for the match was 59-29. That is as lopsided as it gets. I think after like 2-all in the first set, Kasatkina won like a dozen points for the rest of the match. Maybe give like 2 or 3 more. Like it was a demolition, and it wasn't because she played badly. Like I remember in the first set, 2-3, 15-30, she missed a smash. And some people on Twitter were like, oh, like you can't make mistakes like that. And I was kind of like, let's say she made that. Like, do you really think that's going to change her chances? Like maybe she holds for 3-all, but then she's going to get demolished after that.
Yeah.
Like there are certain matchups where it does not matter what you do. Before this podcast started, we were talking about Djokovic Schwartzman, and I said, I think that's a matchup like in best of 5 that could happen 100 times, and Schwartzman could lose 100 times just because he has nothing to hurt Djokovic with. And that's what a lot of players are running into against Swiatek, because she's stifling defensively and offensively.
There was only one player in this tournament that I thought, if they're peaking and they're playing absolutely, redlining every single shot, and they're just going up every single second.
Anisimova?
Ostapenko, maybe?
There were 2, but first in line for me was Ostapenko, and she lost in the second round to Cornet.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, maybe an Anisimova or a Danielle Collins.
So we got them both. Yeah.
I actually thought Ostapenko wouldn't have served well enough, to be honest. Again, there's just not enough free points in her serve.
That's true.
On clay. Obviously, she was the last person to beat her, but it wasn't on clay.
Yeah. I feel like Swiatek is even at the point now where, like, let's say Ostapenko redlined. Swiatek would still be able to defend a lot of those shots. Against Osaka in the Miami final, she was really able to defend Osaka's power from the baseline, which people can't do. So I feel like at the least, and she's also got her own power to hit back with. Like that classic Ostapenko performance is the 2017 final against Halep. But I feel like that was partially happened the way it did because Halep didn't have a lot of counter offense, and Swiatek would. And so she would still be in plenty of the rallies. And so even if Ostapenko did everything right, I still don't know if that would come out in a win.
Yeah. Regardless of if this match is close or not, I'm still really interested in what. Like, I'm still really excited about it. And I do really want to.
Yeah, same. I want to know. I want to see. I was gonna say I want to see how Gauff approaches it. Like,
and I also think she has some other tools that I think Kasatkina doesn't quite have, which could make this match more competitive. I think.
Definitely.
For example, I want to see how she does backhand to backhand against Swiatek.
Yeah, she'll have a chance there, Vansh. Definitely. Like, I think she's got a better backhand than Swiatek. Genuinely.
Really?
I genuinely would say she does. But
But
absolutely don't think that's enough of an advantage.
Right.
Because the forehand's way better from Swiatek.
Because I actually remember in their Miami match, I mean, it was 6-3, 6-1. But I think, what's happened is that once Iga started clicking and she started hitting those deep penetrating ground strokes to the Gauff forehand, I mean, once the forehand went away, the rest of the game and the belief just sapped completely. And so it's just, can she stay with Iga like long enough and drag the first set out to like 4-all and 5-all, and then maybe she gets a look where she can impose herself in a different way, like go for a drop shot and get Iga off balance and
I was gonna say one more note on the backhand as well. It might be better, but on clay it doesn't, because you can't change direction as easily without giving your opponent time. In the forehand, it's not as much of an advantage basically. So like if you had like Hallett played, I think, in Indian Wells like earlier in the season, it might be Miami, one or the other, and maybe Doha, I don't know, one or the other. And I mean Hallett came out on top in most of the backhand exchanges, but Swiatek's backhand was only just good enough basically to keep herself in those rallies when she needed to, and when Hallett did try and attack down the line, it was basically Swiatek was amazing at defending that, obviously. And on clay, that's just like, there's a whole other world basically to why that's a bad idea to change direction.
And even if you hit a perfect backhand down the line, like clay is going to slow it down, and Swiatek defends so well, so there's a chance it comes back. And on balance, it may not be even worth it.
On that note, we should close up.
We like to ramble, sorry.
No, I love a ramble. Hopefully our viewers do too. I believe they do.
We like to just jump around and just do a hodgepodge of many different topics. It's quite fun.
Thank you very much for rambling with me. Please catch Vansh at his Twitter handle, Vansh VK.
V2K. Close.
So close.
V2K, I did that last time, I'm pretty sure. Vansh VK, V2K, sorry. And Owen at Tennis Nation. You can catch their work on Popcorn Tennis. You can catch them on Twitter in general. Catch my work at onlinetennis.uk. Thank you very much for joining us this far through. This has been the Online Tennis Podcast. Thank you very much. Bye.